Welcome to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist, helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe right now so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and please check out the previous ones after listening to this. We have an awesome Facebook community. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. Welcome to Scale Her Up. I'm Brenda Hector, and with me today I've got Dr. Aileen Alexander from Nourish Health and Wellbeing on the podcast. Thank you for joining me, Aileen.
Thank you so much for having me, Brenda. I'm looking forward to it.
So usually we start with an introduction to the business. So tell me what it is that you do at Nourish Health and Wellbeing.
So I'm a lifestyle physician, a phrase that nobody really has heard of because it's kind of a new thing. And I operate in the space of health optimization in that I want people to be healthier and I want them to be happier, right? But people don't usually say, hey, can you help me be healthier and happier? They say, I'm overweight, I'm tired, I'm stressed. So typically I will work with busy professional women who are struggling with their weight, where the diet isn't working, they're stressed out their box, they're juggling all this stuff at home and it just feels like the walls are closing in. And I help them zoom out and see everything from the bigger picture rather than just seeing the food and the calories, but starting to see how their lifestyle interacts with all these other food choices that they're making and the compound effect on that. I do work with some men one-to-one, but typically my zone of genius is working with women.
Oh, I love that term, your zone of genius. Brilliant.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Does everybody know what their zone of genius is? I think they probably don't. But
Probably not, and maybe that's a little bit pompous for me to say, but I believe I'm very good at what I do, and I think it's the people's outcomes, isn't it? Like I work with people that have been trying to change these habits for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, so like decades, but they've always been trying to approach it from the wrong angle, probably similarly to what you do for people. And it's really simple shifts that I'm able to offer them and insights that they just hadn't thought of.
and is it always health and weight loss that they come to you as the problem they think they want fixing?
Typically it is. I mean, because I'm a doctor, I get to do some of the medical stuff as well. Well, I do a fair bit of medical stuff in that I'll maybe see people who have got chronic disease being like long-term conditions, and it's all lifestyle related conditions that I would see. So high blood pressure, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, reflux, stuff like that, that we can actually change through managing sleep, stress, diet, exercise, rather than pills and potions. I say potions just to cover all the kind of unregulated stuff. Or maybe I would see people who are perimenopausal, menopausal, but there's always this common theme that it's almost always linked to weight or challenges with nutrition and relationship with food. So one of the big things that we want to do is get the weight off, but I always think there's like two lanes running side by side. Weight is one of the lanes that, that's the aesthetic thing, but it's also the thing we feel and the thing we feel we're judged by and what we see in the mirror. But then health runs alongside, and you could be like a quote unquote healthy BMI or a normal BMI. And I say quote unquote because it's big pinch of salt stuff. But you could be metabolically unhealthy. So when I then bleed people, look at their blood tests, look at their blood sugars, look at their cholesterol levels, that gives us so much more information, which is super powerful as well. If, empowering people to take charge of their health rather than their GP saying, oh, but it was normal. But how normal was it? Was it kind of almost out with what would be the normal range? And if we look at ranges in the UK, and I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but UK and US, they're different. So I'm just so interested in helping people to realistically make themselves as healthy and happy as possible. Like they want the weight loss, but I want the health part for them. And we want to do both of those things together synergistically.
And it has a much bigger impact than just on the size of clothes that you buy, doesn't it? I was at a conference last week, and my friend was on stage speaking, and she was talking about how she's she's lost 3 stone in weight through exercise and nutrition and a lot of mindset, and actually that her business has improved so much alongside that change.
Yeah, you're bang on. It's like giving people their whole life back. It comes down to like if they're a mum, who you are in the family home at the end of the working day. It comes to who you are in the boardroom. It comes to your confidence to be able to say, no, I want to go forward for that promotion, or I should be paid more, or no, don't speak to me like that, or leave in the toxic relationship. So, yeah, I think these things are so, so important. And whilst they're maybe not overlooked by the women that I support, I think they're overlooked by the weight loss industry as a whole. You know, that kind of clickbait marketing culture, lose 5 stone in whatever time frame. It's so much more than that. And when you see it as the bigger picture, then you're much more able or more willing to look at these other lifestyle factors and how they then influence hormones or how they influence mindset and then the foods that we choose to eat.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. You said confidence. That's absolutely giving people confidence, and also the clickbait marketing stuff. I've been targeted recently with ads for clothing for chubby women with a pronounced stomach. I don't know how that whichever marketing company creates that, but yeah, that does not make people feel good, does it?
No, that's wild. And like, there's a lot of regulation around ads in the health and well-being space, particularly around weight loss. And you're not actually allowed to use the word weight loss on paid advertising. And it'll affect deliverability of emails and all sorts of stuff, but rightly so, because they're trying to protect the consumer. And there's so much nonsense going about, and it's not regulated and not everybody is properly qualified. And so anybody who's listening to this, like, go and do all your research before you go and enroll in whatever product or program you're looking at.
So properly qualified. Absolutely, you're properly qualified, and you've made a bit of a change in your career. So yeah, tell us about your career journey to being the founder of Nourish.
Oh, so I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. So I have been doing this work for 8 years past June, so we're in October now. Um, and it was all just a big accident, really. My husband, we weren't married at the time, but pushed and encouraged me because I didn't have the confidence to step out with kind of the NHS safety net and boundaries. And it started actually as sports nutrition because I was really interested in the gym and sports performance and how could we enhance those things, and what could I learn. So I started doing some little qualifications and diplomas in nutrition, and then people asked me to help them, and I realized how much I liked having the time with people and the flexibility and actually working with people who were motivated to change. And then when I was working as a GP, I was also doing this work alongside, and I would bring my laptop into the GP practice. And it would come lunchtime, and I couldn't wait to respond to all my patients and clients that I was working with remotely. I did a hybrid of in-person and online at that point, but now the people I work with are across the UK. And it just evolved and it grew, and I moved into the weight loss space because I'm really passionate about giving women their voice back and giving women their power back, because it's not about the weight, it's about how we feel about ourselves. And yes, I spoke earlier about health. People are interested in health, but typically it's like they're in such a pained point that they almost want to be rescued and uplifted and fulfilled. And it's like I become this voice that says, hey, you can do it, but we need to do it this way. And they're like, really? You think I can do it? Yeah, I do. And I just loved seeing the outcomes and the transformations within people. And then along came, right, well, how do I incorporate the medical stuff? How can I do blood tests for people remotely? So we incorporated that part, and we can, do like a full health MOT while we're doing the weight loss, while we're doing the lifestyle stuff. And I work really closely with a mental health nurse called Aileen. So she's actually local, although again, we work with people online, and she's worked with me for 5.5 years. So she's a psychological therapist too. So she'll do like cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. So we're coming at it from all different angles, because often women are in a state of blame and shame because the things they did before didn't work and they think they're at fault. So yeah, 8 years in the making, left the NHS 5 years ago in 2019, and then the year after COVID happened. So it was like this beautiful blessing in disguise. But of course, I felt super guilty. I'm emailing the GP practices that I had locumed at, do you need help? Do you need? And they were quiet because people weren't going in. And then it got worse. And I was like, well, you had your chance. Sorry, guys. By that point, my business was gone. Pew. And I was super chuffed, super happy with the work that I was doing. And it just continues to grow and evolve. As I said earlier, I've worked with some men one-to-one, and that's a new thing this year where, men have similar challenges to women. They just present in a different way, but they need supported in a different way as well. And I run groups and I work with people one-to-one. So the men would be one-to-one. We couldn't bring them into a women's group. That would be unfair. That would damage like this safety that we create for people to be able to open up.
So what's the goal in the future then?
Oh, this is such a good question. I think more of the same. Like I'm a very goal-orientated person, but I'm really happy with where things are. So it's really just to meet, like to reach more people. And I think there's a big part to be said for the ripple effect of the work that we do. So I maybe work with a lady who she might have 2 kids, so it impacts her kids and she teaches the habits to her kids, but she tells her best friend, and she'll maybe tell her auntie or her mum, or she'll bring some of these habits into the workplace. So there's definitely this ripple effect. Like I am interested and curious about corporate organizations and how would you go about that. But I also think that people need to be motivated and they need to be ready. And my fear is with bigger organizations, is it a tick box exercise that they can say, oh, we've got this policy, we've got this protocol. So I'd be more interested in working with the senior leadership team and then filtering that down by creating a new culture, by them saying, oh, they're away from their desk having lunch, or they took their trainers in, or oh, they're cycling helmets on their seat. It's about these like influencing other people to change rather than we have a culture where this is accepted and encouraged. It needs to be shown to employees, I think.
By example.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about the about women business owners. So I work with, smaller businesses. So, and I'm a bit of a champion for women in business, hence why I started the podcast. But I remember meeting somebody who'd started her business about the same time as me, and we were like 3 or 4 years in. And she said something about having gained so much weight. She says, because as I've been growing my business, I've neglected myself. So I guess there's quite a there's a real market there for it's really hard to do everything, I suppose, when you're got running your business, keeping your home and your family and look after yourself as well. So I should think there's quite a market there. Is that the
There,
kind of people that you're
that's yeah. So typically the women I would see would be like senior executives, C-suite, and people that own their own businesses, whether it's big or small. But yeah, they're typically stretched in every direction. And like if we had like a pie chart, which is 100%, and we sectioned the pie chart up, they're given so much of their time and their effort and energy to all these other areas that their needs then come last. And that comes down to cultural norms, social norms, belief, values, how we were brought up as kids. And as women, I think we're conditioned to always put others before ourselves. And then there can be patterns of like feeling guilty or selfish for taking time for self. And we can't eat well if we're not meeting our own needs, because often food shows up as a form of comfort or a stress relief, or just wrote a post on LinkedIn about how we use alcohol. And at the end of the day, it's very common to say, oh, you deserve a glass of wine, you've worked really hard this week. Like that's socially normal and accepted, and nobody would bat their eye. And that's not alcohol misuse, but is it the best way to unwind? And I'm not saying you should stop drinking alcohol. I love a glass of wine, but I think we need to be really mindful of our habits and how they're affecting our health and how they're affecting our waistline, but how are they making us feel? Are they numbing us or are they uplifting us? So yeah, I will see women that work long hours, that don't have time to cook, that'll open a bottle of wine and they'll maybe grab some convenience food and they're just trying to do everything for everyone. And it's just that the pie chart gets a little bit disorientated and their part gets squashed, and we need to show them, not tell them, but show them how can they make that section bigger, because they know they could come on a consultation, they could give me 10 things straight away that they could be doing differently to be healthier, to lose weight. They know what to do, but they really struggle with the follow through. And it's not just about accountability, it's about more understanding, why are things the way they are? You know, was there food restriction in the home when you were young? You know, were you told this or that? Were you praised for having seconds, for cleaning your plate, or told you're a good eater? All of these little bits that our parents did because they loved us, not because they wanted to harm us, but actually in the longer term, it's been a bit harmful. That was a really long-winded answer. Sorry,
Oh, great,
Brenda.
great answer. So what about you and your journey in business? What have the challenges been for you?
Oh, loads of challenges, because it's never straightforward, is it? The biggest challenge over the 8 years, I would say, is this imposter syndrome. So I kind of alluded to that when I said my husband, gave me a kick up the butt and got me started. So he set my company up with HMRC as a limited company and was like, hey, you have a company now. Like, that's not a legal thing. So hopefully nobody's going to be like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. But yeah, technically I'm supposed to sign that dotted line and whatever else. And I was like, am I supposed to do this? Because I was so scared. I was scared of taking money from people. I was scared of marketing myself. I was scared of my colleagues judging me. I kept it a big secret for about 2 years. I was like so ashamed. And what would my family say? And when I did eventually leave general practice, which was like 3 years in, I didn't tell my mum. I definitely didn't tell my granny. Oh my goodness.
Oh, she's got such a good job. She's a doctor. We're so proud of her. Yeah.
Exactly that. Can I still tell my friends you're a doctor? And I look at it now, where I am now and how things have gone for me, and the quality of life I have, but also the impact I have, I believe is far greater than the 30, 40 patients that I would see in GP, because I didn't have the time to spend with them to look at the root causes of why they were stuck with various different things. And I would also see people that really didn't want the type of advice or influence that I had, and that's okay. They're the type of people that, need a pill, and that's fine, but they're not who I wanted to influence and support. So I would say imposter syndrome was definitely the biggest challenge. And I had loads of coaching around that, and then leaving the NHS, was that the right thing to do? And the fear of judgment and this label of businesswoman, oh my goodness, terrified me. I remember doing my Myers-Briggs and it came up with the word leader, and I was like, that is not me. That is not me. Whereas I would very confidently step into that role now. But I think we don't see ourselves in the way that maybe other people see us, and it takes us time to grow into ourselves. I came from a really humble fishing village upbringing where people don't really go to uni and they definitely don't become doctors. So when you then upset the apple cart, you're not just changing things for you, you're changing the hopes and dreams and aspirations that your family have as well. So you have to be really careful. And then I think the other challenge that comes with anybody in this space or the coaching space is like marketing and branding yourself. How do you put yourself out there? And I really struggled for a long time to show my true personality, because I had been so bound by these rules of professionalism as a doctor, Dr. Alexander. So I had like this doctor persona. But as soon as I started to unleash the real Aileen, people came, because the authenticity brought them. But again, that took a lot, and it was mindset orientated stuff. And for a long time, I would rely on like Facebook ads and stuff in order to reach people. Whereas if I presented myself authentically in my organic network, the people would just come and the referrals would come and all of that. So loads and loads of learning. And I'm sure I've got heaps and heaps of mistakes still to make. And there's loads of other ones that I've not mentioned, but I'd say that'd be the kind of top ones.
So you're talking about marketing, and just before we started recording, you were talking about a big launch that you've just done. So tell us about that process then, and how that's gone for you.
Yeah, so I only started launching 2 years ago. So before then, I had evergreen programs that were open all the time. Anybody could join. Well, not anybody could join. I like to have a chat with people and make sure it is genuinely going to be a good fit. Otherwise, it's a bit like being in general practice. Tell somebody, let's do this, and they're like, no, they're super resistant. But it was evergreen. It was one-to-one. Had a team of people that worked with me, and then we thought, what would happen if we brought women into groups? And I was really scared because I thought, well, you need a certain amount of women in order to run the group, and will we get the women? And how do you then market that? So it needs to be this really strategic marketing process where you're putting a series of posts out and having conversations and enrolling people to start at a set start date. So this is my 6th launch for what's called the Nourish Academy. And what we did this time is we did a scholarship opportunity. So I offered £8,000 worth of funding. So 1 full scholarship and 9 partial scholarships for women to come in at a discounted rate. And we had 52 people apply. I was totally overwhelmed. Like, how am I going to speak to 52 people and assess whether they're a good fit or not? But there's so much excitement in that process for me as well, seeing the people coming in, seeing the energy. And there's one lady that enrolled who was an old school friend of mine, and she spoke to me in 2019, and she was so ready to do it, but financially she just wasn't able to get herself over the line and make that commitment. She had 2 young kids and she just felt she wasn't worthy enough. So she's come back 5 years on, and she said, I'm heavier than before. My kids are older. I still don't feel comfortable making this investment in me, but I need to do it. So we spent a lot of time making sure it was the right thing to do. And it's just so wonderful to have her and these other like-minded women in this community where they're able to learn from each other and be validated in terms of, I'm not the only one that's doing these things or think these things. You can see them just go, wow, like all these epiphanies. So yeah, it's been a great process, but that doesn't mean that every launch goes wonderfully. Every time I do a launch, I do like a debrief, what went well, what didn't go well, why did that happen? And I sit down with the team and we brainstorm, because we did a scholarship earlier this year for Aileen, who's the mental health nurse. And I only launched it to former patients of ours. And it was a complete flop. We didn't get anybody at all. Nobody was interested. But we did it in January, which I think was the wrong time because everybody's got their New Year's resolutions and they're super motivated and whatever else. So there's so many parts to it. So yeah, don't look at me and think I'm like this overnight wonderful success and everything turns to gold. That's not the case. But I think if we're willing to learn and explore what goes on and why, then we'll always find a solution.
So you've been learning from the mistakes you're making each time as well, yeah?
Try my best to. Sometimes I'm like, why did this happen? This is so annoying. And then I think about, right, well, what would I do if it was a patient of mine who find themselves in that situation? I would say, be really curious and be really compassionate towards yourself as you explore what's going on. And I think I'm just so much more chilled, whereas I would have been super high stress before, going, have we reached out to these 52 people? Who's responded? How many have we got in? I don't actually know what my launch numbers are in terms of financial outcome. I just know it's good and I will go and look at them. But the fact that I'm not focusing on the nitty gritty, because it doesn't change the outcome. I think it's the energy that you bring changes the outcome. And then you can look at all these parts, because that's not going to move the needle until the launch is over anyway.
So what would be your advice? Obviously, this podcast is intended to get other women to think about starting their own business or to scale up. And if they don't have a husband pushing them and presenting them with a limited company that they have to run, what would your message be to people that are maybe thinking of taking that leap?
Well, I think everybody needs somebody to encourage them, whether that's a friend or a husband or a parent or a sister or a brother, or like whether it's a coach. I've hired heaps of coaches and mentors over the years. People come to me a lot and say, can you help me? And, you know, can we do this? And can we have a coffee? And can I pick your brain? I'm like, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, an hour with me isn't going to change your business, not going to move the needle. We need to hire people who have been where we want to be in order to get there. But we also need to get the idea off the ground. And to do that, you need like this inner self-confidence, which I clearly didn't have. And Martin was like, here you go, here's your bit of paper. Unfortunately, he didn't put any money in the business bank account. I had to do all of that part. But the fact that there was this thing that he'd overcome that inertia for me. But sometimes we need to do that for ourselves. And that's the same when I had this idea of, well, what if we did groups? It's always scary. Even like where I am now, like my thoughts are, okay, maybe I'll start running Facebook ads again. I'm like, oh, but that's scary because you're spending money and it's risk and whatever. There's always risk, whether it's financial risk or fear of judgment or stepping away, you know, from your job or cutting your hours. Like there is no perfect way or perfect time to do it. But I think if you've got this desire and the fire or the flame is big enough, then you've got this moral and ethical obligation to chase it down and see what might happen. Because I honestly wouldn't in a million years ever have imagined leaving the NHS or running a business or working in the private sector. No, 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 no. That there was so much shame and judgment wrapped up in that, which was all inside of my head.
So you mentioned coaches and mentors. Who's been your, other than your husband, obviously, who's been your biggest supporters on your journey?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think one of my biggest supporters is actually now my mum. I wonder if she'll listen to this. She secretly follows all my stuff, but pretends she doesn't. So she's got like this secret Instagram page, even though she's like anti-social media. So she's really proud of what I've done, although at the beginning, maybe it wasn't that she wasn't encouraging, she was nervous for me. And then in terms of like mentors and things that I've hired, I've been parts of lots of different masterminds. Most of them have been US based, and most of them have been aimed at like coaches in the broader sense. So not medical doctor coaches, which I've had to take what they've said with a lot of pinches of salt. And that's been some of my biggest mistakes as well, is taking what people have said as gospel too, rather than thinking, does this align with me and my beliefs and my values and things like that. But yeah, I think the other thing as well is friends. So surrounding yourself with other people that get it. So, you know, some of my friends will be in a 9 to 5 job and they won't maybe understand what it's like, but you can also let people know, how do you like to be supported? What do you need? Rather than it being this competition of, oh, well, my job was so busy. Oh, well, you don't know what it's like to run your own business or whatever else. And then connecting with other people that are in similar positions has been super valuable to me. Like so, so valuable, because then you can relate to each other and you're always able to help each other. So I think you can never be too connected to too many people that are genuinely cheering you on. And it took me a while to find who those people were, but you do find them.
Oh yeah, that's a good message actually. That you know that they're not automatically that you need to go and find them, and there will be people who on the face of it appear to be the right people that turn out not to be. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also this thought of, well, I don't want to share my ideas with other people because they'll steal my ideas and they'll steal my leads and my potential clients. And I honestly think all of that's nonsense. If you'd asked me this 2, 3 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely not. But now I believe that there could be two people doing exactly the same thing, and there could be two potential clients, and one will go to one and one will go to the other. Because in the space that I'm in with what I'm doing, because I'm me and I'm selling me essentially, they're not coming just because of my qualifications or what I know or what I can do or my reputation. They're coming because of who I am. And the next person be like, oh no, Aileen is not my vibe. And that's cool. They like need to go to the other person. So I think the right people will go to the right people. And if we're keeping all our secrets close to our chest, then you don't get that like Remember I was talking earlier about energy? And I don't mean this into like a proper woo-woo sense, but I do feel in terms of if you feel good, the stuff you put out there is great. So whether it's a little video or you're writing a post or you're doing a webinar or you're on a podcast or whatever, if you're connected and you're sharing with people and you feel inspired and other people are cheering you on, you're cheering them on and you're sharing what's working for you, then everybody wins.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. And I'm the same in what I do, it's people buy from me, not from ActionCOACH, if you like. So yeah, I totally
Yeah.
understand. So yeah, it's back to that. Just be yourself and be natural and open and yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's really hard to do. Like it is, well, I find it really hard to do again, like the confines of the professional doctor. And it's not that I'm unprofessional now. Like I very much practice good medical practice and I operate by professionalism. I'm still appraised every year and I've got to do 80 hours of CPD and all of that nonsense. But I'm able to speak in my voice with my values rather than what I think people want to hear.
Or what the constraints of the job and the ties of the organization, I suppose. And yeah, no, I can't give you that because it says here not to, even though I know it. I guess there's a
Yeah,
lot of
there is an element. Yeah, there definitely is an element of that in terms of like cost and budget and yeah, yeah.
yeah. So did you always want to have your own business?
No. No, absolutely no. I was terrified. And it was really just, I remember I was saying before, like it started as a hobby and I wouldn't charge people. And then my husband was like, but you have to charge people because you're giving them your time. I'm like, but I just enjoy it. And he's like, but maybe this could be a thing. And I was charging pennies, like pennies for the first 2 years until I realized, oh wait, hold on, this is a really great skill set that people are getting. And other people are charging accordingly. And I also believe that when something is free or when something is cheap, people devalue it. They don't show up in the same way. And I know people might think that that's a cliche, but it's been well proven over the years with the different people that I have worked with. And a lot of the stuff that's within my paid community goes out somewhere free, maybe not the resource, but the message and the way it's communicated, but it doesn't land the same for people because they're not showing up because there's not that same skin in the game.
And that undervaluing, that's really common, I think, particularly amongst women in business. But it's the imposter syndrome again, isn't it? It's like who am I to charge that kind of money for just little old me kind of thing. It's very common.
Exactly. I think especially when you're selling a service that you are fulfilling as you rather than like a product, for example. Maybe it shows up with people with products. I don't know. I don't have a product, but yeah, it's really tricky. But no, definitely never wanted to run a business. Too much risk. And like the whole like marketing and oh my goodness, would have just terrified me. But I had this great thing that was really helping people and this duty to get it out there and such a passion to do it. And I would say I've got more passion now than I had before. Like, yeah, I just love it. You can probably tell by how
And
excited I am on your podcast.
you see the impact you're having.
Mhm.
It snowballs, I guess. Yeah, yeah. So do you have a team? Who's there supporting you?
So I got Raylene, who I mentioned earlier, the mental health nurse. So she's great and she will see people independently as well as people in part of the academy, which is a small group as well as men. And then I've got two assistants. I've got Nicole and I've got Louise. So Nicole will do most of like the day-to-day admin, invoices, payment reminders, making sure that I'm doing all the things that I need to do. And then Louise is more kind of operations. So she'll help me with like processes and new systems and tech and things like that. And then I also have a wonderful lady who does less hours with us called Katie. She's local as well. I did a TEDx talk with Katie, and that's how we met. And she helps me with all my Instagram reels and things because if it was up to me, like there would be nothing going out on Instagram. So she's like, we need videos of these things. I've got this great idea. And I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. And then she makes it look all beautiful. So yeah, that's the bit I think that's been a game changer for me, because for such a long time it just felt like it was just me. And it feels really quite lonely. Whereas when you get to share it with other people, and you're contributing to paying their mortgages and their bills and their quality of life, and the team culture as well, looking after each other. I really like that part too.
It is lonely in business until you get to that level. But yeah. So if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give Aileen then?
Oh, I'd give it a big hug. I'd be like, it's okay. It's all going to be okay. Because the 18-year-old Aileen would have been going away to medical school and really scared that all these other people, was she going to fit in? Was she going to be good enough? All of these things, coming from wee Banff Academy. Like, is that allowed? Am I allowed to be a doctor? Is that okay? Was it really me that got in? I've not answered your question at all. So to answer your question, I don't think there's any words that I could give her that would actually change the outcome. But if there were words, and if she would believe them, it would be like, you're destined to do really great things here. Keep sticking in. You belong. You deserve this spot. And I think that goes out to like so many young girls and so many women, that we feel so undeserving that we don't put ourselves forward. And like past me, there's so much of that in past me that didn't want to take up the space and didn't want to be front and center and whatever else, which I think people would find really hard to believe when they see me on social media these days. But that's the power of coaching as well. So not just the coaching I do, but the coaching that you do, because we all need somebody to call ourselves forward. We all need somebody that sees us as bigger than we see ourselves. And I think that's one of the big needle movers. I know I said there's many big needle movers, but again, another big needle mover for me is having people that believed in me more than I believed in myself, which helped me to stretch myself, because I wasn't just doing it for me, I was also doing it for them. And it helped me to step into the bigger boots each and every time. But yeah, it's a scary journey, but I just love it.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yes. If 18-year-old you could see you now, that would be perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else I should have asked? Anything that you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked yet, Aileen?
I don't think so. I don't think there is. I think I've given a little bit of a whirlwind tour. I've shared some big vulnerabilities. I've shared all the scary bits. I've shared a lot of the good bits as well. I don't think there's anything you've missed out, Brenda.
Would you have done anything differently?
That's such a good question. No, a lot of people ask me, would you still have went through all of your training to be a doctor and your junior doctor years and your GP training and your GP exam? 100%. 100%, because I wouldn't be able to do the level of what I do without that. I wouldn't be able to do, well, I could still do blood tests, but I wouldn't have the depth of understanding and knowledge. I don't think I would have the interpersonal skills, but I also don't think I would have like a deep appreciation for the way that people live their lives and the challenges that come. I'd meet like 40 strangers in a day, and you're only really getting a snapshot and a glimpse, but I don't think I'd change anything. I think it all has to happen when it happens for a reason. I think the only other bit I would change is maybe my TEDx talk. I feel like I did a TEDx talk 2 years ago, so 2022. That came too early for me in terms of I was absolutely terrified. I did not sleep for like a month before or a month after until I saw it come out. But again, that was a real stretch goal for me. That was Derek Thompson phoning me up and saying, you're one of our speakers. That was somebody seeing me as bigger than I saw myself. I had the guts to apply, but when I actually got the place, I was like, can I really do that? And
I
it was
applied.
scary.
I applied. I was shortlisted, and I didn't get a place, and it was such a relief.
Bless you. Oh, yeah, I hear that. It's such a stretch goal. Keep applying, because if you're shortlisted, you'll definitely get in. But I wouldn't change when I did it because it was a stretch I needed at the time. But it was just, am I allowed to swear? Bloody scary. You can beep that bit out if you want.
Oh no, I won't. I won't. That's you being you. You being authentic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's the next stretch goal?
Um, well, here's a stretch goal I get to share actually. So I am 15 weeks pregnant today.
Oh
So
my goodness,
the stretch
congratulations.
goal is, how do I do this with a baby in 2025?
Oh, how do you make your business run without you? Yes, that'll be interesting. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, of course I can tell people now because we're beyond the 12 weeks. I haven't shared it publicly. I've not shared it on any of my social media channels or whatever else yet. But so that will be the next stretch goal is, I don't think it'll run without me, because I think it's what I bring to the fulfillment part, not just me, like obviously Raylene, and I would be able to bring other people in, but there'll be a period of time, I think, when things get paused, and then it'll be coming back, but doing less hours. How do you have the same impact? How do you create the same income on less hours? And well, this will be my first child. I have two stepchildren that I met when they were 3 and 6. They're now 12 and 15. So they're like my live-in childcare. It's going to be great. One thinks it's great, one is not so sure. But how, what's that like? I'll be a first-time mum and I'll be not sleeping and there'll be all these other things. So that is the next stretch goal. So very much focusing on, let's hold things where they are. I do want to do more of the health MOT, the medical stuff, in terms of bringing people in, having a little consultation, doing their blood test, presenting the results, instead of them having to come in and do 12 weeks of intensive coaching. So definitely want to ramp that up. But also, how do I keep doing what I'm doing at the level I'm doing it in less hours? That's a big stretch.
It's a common challenge for many business owners. So
Yeah, and I bet it's a big
well,
one for a lot of women.
I'll get you back on in a year or two, and we'll see how the journey's been
There
and how
might be
you
more swearing then, Brenda.
feel. Believe me, I have teenagers. My kids are 16 and 19, and there will be much more swearing.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you. I've had so much fun. Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you for sharing that big news too. Thanks for listening to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and join our Facebook community at Scale Her Up. Please connect with me, Brenda Hector, on social media and drop me a message to let me know how you're enjoying the podcasts, or even better, pop up a review. I'll finish by reminding you that only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over 1 million in turnover than women are. If we started and scaled our businesses to the same extent as men, it would add £250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it and make a massive difference.